and welcome to another episode of Red Fox on the Run. I'm your host, Christiana Roussel. In today's episode, I sit down with Chef Bill Briand of Little Bird Restaurant in Fairhope, Alabama. In this episode, Bill shares stories of growing up in New Orleans, how his mom took him to the back door of Emerald's to see if he could get a job, to taking his love of this cuisine to the Gulf Coast with Fishers at Orange Beach, and eventually landing in Fairhope, bringing along his Southern Grace dinner series. It's really a story about connection and hospitality, about leadership and what we choose to carry and what we choose to leave behind, and the legacy of that journey. So can't wait for you to take a listen, share it with your friends, and thank you, Bill, for sitting down with me. So before you were Chef Bill Briand, what were you like as a little kid?
I was a military brat.
Yeah.
So we moved like every 3.5 years, up until we ended up in Louisiana in the early 90s. So, you tried to make friends the best you could, but those people that were already there were leaving before you.
Yeah.
And then you were that guy the next time around when new kids were coming onto the block. So I guess that's what the brat situation is. I don't know.
Yeah.
I had my brother, so
Yeah.
we kind of did our own thing. I mean, it was easier because,
Yeah, you
you
had a
know,
built-in pal. My mom
well,
was an
yeah.
Army brat, and she would say the same thing, that it was like, you get settled and then you're moving.
Yeah, I mean, once you got older, it was, maybe in the beginning when we were little kids, it didn't matter, but we plopped into New Orleans. We lived on the West Bank. Parents scrambled to get us into Catholic school. My dad wanted us to go to any school that had tan uniforms because it looked like Navy uniforms. And we ended up at De La Salle because we were late applicants, but it was New Orleans and we were on St. Charles, and that's kind of where. I mean, I helped cook food and I was always in the kitchen before that, but that's kind of where it really started to get where I was, seeing a lot more of it because my mom was like introduced to New Orleans and all of this food that she saw on TV and she read in books. And
Yeah.
now we could go to restaurants and there was famous chefs that she saw on PBS, and, it became. And so what we were eating in high school and growing up and finishing, high school and college really got changed and elevated in her style because she started to be able to go and physically see these things instead of doing her, read up on it. I mean, my mom was a self-taught everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
She didn't come and ask you about something. She would go and read about it and learn herself. She might ask you after, but she won't. She wasn't the type of person that liked to tell anybody she didn't know it.
Yeah. She would just wanted to suss it out.
She she tried out for Jeopardy 4 or 5 times in New Orleans, and they didn't accept her because she answered all the questions correctly. I've watched episodes with her where she answered every question correctly before anybody else, but she was extremely, extremely smart. Like you
Yeah.
couldn't get over on her if you tried. She just
Yeah.
was not that type of person.
So she had
But
strong IQ and EQ.
yeah. So we did a lot. My dad was still traveling a little bit with the Navy doing some retirement stuff. He also was a skeet and trap shooter, so he was traveling and doing tournaments. So anytime he was gone, me and my mom were sneaking away to a restaurant or and that's how it kind of started. And I went to college and that was just wasn't it just I didn't like it, and then I finished because I wasn't allowed to quit. I finished the first semester and came home, and I was just like, this is just not what I want to do. Like I don't like any of it.
Where were you in
Um,
college?
I went to Southeastern in Hammond.
Okay.
I want to be really close. Not most of my friends all went there, but like I like to draw, so I was trying to do some like drafting, and then they introduced me to AutoCAD, and I was like, I don't like computers I couldn't even get it to work so that we could be on this podcast.
Right.
But so my mom was like, like you always love to cook. You're in New Orleans, like, why don't you give that a shot? So you know, I decided that was what I was gonna do. So she drove me around in her church van. She always drove on a van like that. I don't know why.
Why do you call it a church van?
Well, it's got the extended wheelbase. She liked to sit up high. I mean,
Yeah.
it was because So anytime my dad moved, me and my dad or my dad and my brother would fly to wherever he was getting transferred to. And then my mom would drive with the dogs and the other, and either me or my brother, whoever,
Okay.
luck of the draw, I guess.
Yeah.
Not very lucky, but my mom drove that church van with two dogs and a lot of my dad's shotguns from California to Louisiana, while
Okay.
me and my dad were in Louisiana painting the inside of a house that my dad just bought that was pink because my mom hated pink. And so, like, my brother did it, that's just how it was. One of us went with dad to get it set up. My mom drove the
Yeah.
important things because they couldn't fly. My mom would never put an animal on a plane.
I know. And back then, I don't know. I mean, I
Back
guess
then, you were in the bottom of the plane, and they were like, "Hey, the
maybe you'll
sensor
get
says there's
there.
no oxygen
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
whatever."
Yeah.
And
What did New
but
Orleans mean to your mom? Like when she got dropped down in New Orleans, did you
well,
change in
she
her?
loved it, and
Yeah.
she was ready to grow roots too. I mean, all she could do on the Navy base was find the local church, you know, donate her time, and then she was the head of all. So we have like all the cookbooks that the Wives Club did. I have all of them. She's got recipes all the way through them, but she would spearhead all of that stuff.
And are they all like spattered with like
They're like
grease?
that plastic spiral
Yeah. Yeah.
things. They're all like this big. I have
Yes.
probably 100 of them.
Yeah.
But so that's what she would do. So when she got to New Orleans and I mean, there was nothing. I mean, you eat on the base, it was McDonald's. There was nothing
Right.
on a Navy
Where
base.
is the base in relation to like, I mean, I know New Orleans is
So we didn't live on a base. My dad finished on the naval support activity on the West Bank. I don't think it even exists anymore. It wasn't a hospital. He was just, at that point, my dad was, I mean, I get it was his last cent. He was just kind of managing whatever they needed to do. It wasn't hospital based by any means. But before that, he was like a commanding officer or the executive command officer of Navy hospitals that were on Marine bases because the Navy runs all hospital and all corpsmen and all medics for the Marines. I mean, the
okay.
Marines are Navy.
Yeah. Yeah.
There. And so that's what we did. So we lived on Camp Pendleton during Desert Storm. you know, he was all over the place. He helped open all these Navy medical schools all over the world. He was in Vietnam. When he came back from Vietnam, he went back and set up a hospital there after. Like, I mean, that was his thing.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
my mom she loved being in New Orleans. So, we drove around and she just drove me around and I applied places and, we were downtown, or warehouse district, which didn't exist then. And she pulled up in front of Emerald's, and I was like, "Oh, this is big, like maybe I shouldn't start that way,
Yeah.
like I don't think I'm ready for that." And so she put the van in park, and I was like, "So you're obviously not going to drive away from here until I, go knock on the door, right? I guess, right?" And she was like, "Yeah, what's the harm in it? What
Yeah.
did you tell you no?
And were you
Not
like
answer the door?
19? Were you 19 at the time?
What's that?"
Were you like 19?
I was like 18 or 19, yeah.
Okay.
So I wasn't even 18 when I was in college, so I was probably 18.
Okay.
And I knocked on the door, and one of the chefs let me in, and I was like, "Hey, are y'all looking for y'all hiring?" And they're like, "No, here's an application. Why don't you come back and stars?" And I was like, "I don't even know what that is."
Right.
You know what I mean? And so I was like, "Stars, like, yeah, come back and work a night with us and see if you like it and see if we like you." And I was like, "Okay, like, so you're gonna come back?" I was like, "Oh yes, when?" And that's kind of when it really started, like I knew after when I was in there for like an hour and the chef was like, "Okay, well, you've seen some things and, you know, we're going to get pretty busy pretty soon. So, you can probably just head out and we'll give you a call." And I was like, "No," I said, if I'm going to get this job, I want to see what it is busy, and I want to see what cleanup is like. I want to see the whole thing. I'll stand in the corner. I'll stay out of the way, but I want to see the whole thing from start to finish. I
Yeah.
think that's why I got the job.
Because you were all in.
Well, I mean, if I'd have walked out the door after an hour, I mean,
Yeah. They probably have half a dozen people do that all the time.
I think that's probably a test.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I just went in there and started at the, Amuse, which was a station for the free bite.
Yeah.
And then I just helped the salad guy next to him, and then I was serving salads, and then, but it became this like, it was very addictive.
Yeah.
Like you're
You
learning
like
and
the
helping, and then you look at the schedule and you got to shift on a new station, and you're like, yeah, like it was, next thing I was snap, it was 9 years. I mean, it was like it seemed like yesterday when I started there.
wow. What
You
part was
know,
the most addictive? Like the pace or
oh, it was the pace. I mean, the fact that everybody around you was watching. Like back then it's Emeralds, right?
right.
So yeah, we did have to put seasoning on the rim of the plate, and that was kind of, I guess it was a theme then. And you look at it now, and you're like, no, we won't do that. But like everybody that I work with there runs restaurants now or has.
Yeah.
Everybody there, if you put up a plate of food that wasn't correct, the chef never even had to call you out on it. The line cook next to you was like, bro, we don't do that.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
You know, and there was just as many girls in there as guys, and they were kick butt, and they
Yeah.
were, and it was harder for them. I can guarantee that, but like they were all awesome, and it was fire and brimstone. Like we would go in there and we would fight through it every day. We,
Yeah.
we were. The chef in charge there, we'd line up at the end of cleanup. It'd be 1 o'clock in the morning, and he'd be like, what did we do right? What did we do wrong? And like, we would talk about it. I mean, I probably would have jumped off a bridge for that guy at one point. It just
Yeah.
was one of those things,
Yeah.
the team thing part of the team organization part of it. And, bailing your friend out next door next to you. Like that was, you know,
They're not
back
all, I
then it
mean,
was
there are a
cool
lot
to
of
have burns on your arms and you would show them off and like
right. There are a lot of
completely different now. But
similarities between that and the life your dad had a little bit. I mean, like you call it a chef's brigade. You're in the line. You just said bailing people out. Like there's a lot of military references that
yeah,
overlap.
yeah. I mean, if I could, if I'm probably 50-50, my mom and my dad. And
Yeah.
my brother tells me that all the time
Yeah.
because I have the dad's the addictive personality and the constant learning of food, which is 100% my mom and everything she did, but the stubbornness of my dad and the not quitting and the push it to the max was always my dad. And so my
Yeah.
brothers, every time we talk, was like, dude, it's like you are like 100% 50-50 down the middle with both of them.
And what's your brother like?
He's extremely smart. My brother sells wine in New Orleans. Has been in and out of the hospitality and wine his whole life.
Okay.
Extremely smart. Um, he was like, he loved like acting and like, doing all that kind of stage stuff when he was in high school. Um, he's got a bunch of kids and a lovely wife. He lives in New Orleans, but he's probably a little flavor, not as stubborn as me, but definitely has the smarts of my mom for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, my mom was insanely smart. You couldn't ask her anything. My dad was the best crossword puzzle guy in the world because he just asked her the answer. She knew it every single time. It was ridiculous.
If your mom were like a mom in today's world, like I know that was a different time, but like your mom sounds like she could have done anything.
Yeah, I think I don't know if she loved it or hated it. I think computers for her would probably have been something she didn't like that. Like
Yeah.
she liked to go to the library and look through the card catalog and find it. But like again, it was a different world when she was studying in college and doing all of those things.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I remember us having a computer at back in the day. I mean, it was really big and boxy and but she still didn't use it that way. She used the old school typewriter.
Right. Right.
Like I would write stuff for school probably almost until we got to high school. I would write it all and she would type it for me because she was a better typer than me.
Wow. Well, it probably, as a mom, I'll tell you that she probably was also doing that for connection to you.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. But
Yeah.
she always liked to be involved in my projects. I
Yeah.
mean, I got better grades because she helped me.
Yeah.
Like I know that.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That's pretty intense. Um, so you stayed in New Orleans and then you worked for 9 years at Emerald's. And in that time you learned a lot about hospitality,
I mean,
but
I went all the way to like I was like the saucier on the saucier's 2 days off. So I did all the stocks and sauces. And then I was the butcher a couple of days a week when the butcher was off. And so like by the time I got to the tail end, I was working like Friday and Saturday night on the road station after I did an AM shift with Saucier and Butcher.
Wow.
And that was like most of my week was in the tail end of the week in doubles. But yeah, I mean, I went to management training a few times at Emerald's home base. So like I mean, I understood evolution, but they didn't give you nothing unless you went and got it.
Yeah.
You had to earn it.
Yeah.
You
Do you
know.
remember other guys coming to the back door of the kitchen knocking with their mom in the church van the way yours?
No, no. I remember a lot of people coming though. I
Yeah.
mean, a lot of people disappear in the middle of it too. They just turn around, they'd be gone.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, knives gone, everything. We call it like ghosting.
Yeah.
But it was tough. And look, if you were struggling, we would help you for a week or two.
Yeah.
But if you didn't catch on,
If you can't cut it, you can't cut it.
I mean, I know that kind of is harsh in the world we think of now, but like, I mean, I think some of that harshness taught me some things. I mean, there's some things that I learned coming up that I would never do. And I think that's another learning process is what not to do,
Right.
you know?
What's the number one
It
thing
was
not to
tough.
do?
It was tough.
Yeah. The number one thing not to do?
Yeah, exactly. I saw a lot of things not to do. And I think that made me a better manager when I got the chance,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know?
So what was the number one thing not to do? Don't steal the knives, don't ghost.
I mean, I didn't believe in the yelling part of it.
Yeah.
I didn't ever think that it did anything,
Yeah.
right? Yelling at somebody in front of the rest of the crew did absolutely nothing but put that guy in a position where the rest of his food for the night was not going to be good.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you got called into an office and had a conversation or something, that's a whole different ballgame. Like you had a conversation with the chef is mad at you for doing it some way, and you can have a conversation so you're never going to do it again and come out and do the same thing. But,
Right.
you know, chewing somebody out in the middle of the shift where guests can see it and the
Ooh.
rest of the crew can see it does nothing for your food quality.
Don't you think you could taste the difference in that
100%. I
after
said
you get
preach to
yelled
these
at?
guys. I'm like, I feel like if you're not having a good day, whether you're getting yelled at or not, your food doesn't taste good.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wish I was in a position labor wise where if every day somebody came in and wasn't having a great day, they could go home and chill. Cool. If I have enough people that day, they are going to go home. You know, Sometimes you just can't leave it at the door. If you can't leave it at the door, we're going to try to find a way for you to go home. And I'm going to put somebody else over there that's going to create good food that day for me
Yeah.
because that's a better conversation than the next one. Right.
Yeah.
And
And those
I've
people have
cooked some pretty bad plates, pissed off at a chef that screamed at me. I know I have. But you
yeah.
know what? I made a pact to myself that I was gonna, you know, when I got to a place where I could be in control, I was gonna do it a different way.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And was that next step Fisher's or was there something in between?
No, so when I left Emerald's, I went to work at Herb Saint with
Oh.
Donald Link, and I started there with the plan that I was going to Cochon to work under Steven Strowski.
Okay.
Right. And so I walked in and sat down with Donald. He showed me the plans of Cochon. I said, okay. He's like, well, we're going to try to get this going in the summer. I said, well, that's a little bit of time. He said, hold on. He went in the kitchen. He fired a guy on the lunch crew right then and there. I think his name was Spider, if I remember correctly. But then started there the next morning, and Steve was the AM sous chef at the time. And so we were doing that. And we ran lunch for a good bit of time, and then Ryan Pruitt came on, and then Katrina hit.
Yeah.
And so we were just getting into the building, and Coach Sean had poured the floor with nothing else in there. And, that all happened. And so months later, they had to make the decision whether they were going to continue to work on Cochon or pump the brakes for a minute. And, it was go. And so they continued on that. Well, we all worked at Herb Saint for a while, but I went to Cochon and opened that with Steve and Donald and helped them run it. I was a sous chef there for a long time. And then when we started a butcher shop in the Calgary room, which is the private dining upstairs, I moved out of the kitchen at Cochon and helped them get that going. did that for a year or two, and then Donald really wanted to open up Cochon Lafayette, and
Hmm.
so that was his like he wanted to move home and get closer to his roots, and he built this. It's probably the coolest restaurant they'll ever be in my mind, and it was right on the river in River Ranch, and it had this giant smoker in the front that was an old water tank from a rice field, and it had a whole back kitchen with tilt kettles, and I had my own kitchen to prep and get all the stuff in the smoker, and then I ran the kitchen at night with a good friend of mine, Kyle Waters, who was the chef there, and so I was there as like I guess executive sous, just helping him. And we eventually, Donald and Steve decided to close it down after about 3 years. Um,
Why?
that was detrimental to me for a minute because I didn't understand.
Why did they decide to close it
I
down?
mean, I get it now. I think that Cochon Lafayette was ahead of its time.
Yeah,
I think that if they opened it, within the last 3 or 4 or 5 years, it would have been super successful. Because there's a lot of people doing the things that we were doing there now, and then those restaurants are running and
yeah,
rolling.
yeah,
So, I mean, it was a hassle to drive back and forth to oversee it, I'm sure. Um, you know, there were plans at that point, probably Ryan and them were probably already discussing Pesh.
yeah,
I mean, it was like Ryan was up there one day, Steve was up there, and so like I think that their business plan changed when they wanted to have them all in a certain area.
yeah,
I mean, I totally understand the control purposes of having them all in an area that are, you know, as a chef now, I get it.
yeah, yeah. When you feel like you're spread too thin.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. And I think that, I think we did a great job. I love that place. So Cochon Lafayette had like herb thing food and
mm,
Cochon food together.
yeah.
And it was huge. It was a big restaurant. It had a big outdoor like landscape down the river with all kind of like planter boxes everywhere. And we were growing all kinds. I mean, it was just a cool place.
Wow. I can
Uh,
see why you'd miss that.
I do. It was a lot of work. I'd
Yeah,
probably still be doing it right now, though. I mean, like, I
yeah.
was working 15, 16 hours a day there. The first 8 hours was like, just me climbing and hanging stuff. And this smoker was like 25 feet tall. There was a ladder in it. You could go all the way to the top. I could smoke all the sausage, all the boudin, all the New York strips, all the bacon's flat, all at once.
Wow.
It was huge.
But maintaining that kind of a smoker, that is like an around the
It was a
clock.
lot of work. I
Yeah.
was younger then. I probably would be. I'd probably be complaining a little bit if I was still doing it now.
You might
Um,
have figured out somebody to help you with it.
yeah, and so that ended, right? So I
Yeah.
came back and, had some conversations with Donald and, you know, we walked through Pets when it was still getting built, well, still getting revamped because it was an old building. And, you know, it's just, it was maybe that time, Donald was like, maybe it's that time, like, why don't you venture out and see what's out there? There's always something here for you, but start small and, venture out, check out what's around. And, um, my brother's wife at the time, um, her brother opened up House of Blues with Johnny Fisher long back in the day, and he was working with the Hangout group, and they had just opened the shipping container in the Gulf,
Yeah, yeah.
and so Johnny was looking for a chef for the Gulf, and so somehow my name came across, and so I went down to the beach and checked it out, and it was smaller at the time. It was only like one shipping container. Um, and it's, there was some, cool ideas and, it was a different thing. And so I, took a job thinking that that's where we're going to end up. And, you know, a month or so before I was moving, I was packing my stuff in Lafayette and I got the call to, come back to Orange Beach and check out this place. And so, pin got dropped on my phone and I drove to it and it was Orange Beach Marina and they were in the process of a huge rebuild from BP
Hmm.
and they were building this mega beautiful restaurant. I mean, I'd never seen anything so nice in my life. I mean, it was the light blue ceilings and everything was white and marble and these huge teak decks. And I mean, I was just like, this can't be real.
Yeah.
And they're like, hey, we want you to run the restaurant. And I was like, okay, upstairs, this sounds great. What's it like? 190 seats? Like, that's probably be 240. And I'm like, Donald, and back in my mind, Donald's like, small, start small. And so I was like, well, that's cool. And then it was like, yeah, you'll also be responsible for downstairs, which is probably the 300 seats.
Whoa.
And they didn't open at the same time, and so that kind of was like, I was like, I got to do this. Like, this is it. I'm doing it. And so, I came and did that, and it was like my Uber focus for 10 years. I mean, we didn't, that was it every day. And, I think I probably worked 16 hours every day that I walked into that building
I'm sure. I'm
for the
sure.
whole 10 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it was, first chance. You're the chef. There's nobody, like you get to do this stuff.
Yeah.
You get to develop the menus, you get to teach the guys, you get to train the staff, you know.
And you had a different set of ingredients to work with there. I mean,
It was, I mean, I started there like I was opening a kosher, and it was all ribeyes and pork chops, and how that did not go well the first week.
yeah.
It's where we opened Memorial Day weekend, and I had like, I don't think I had like one fish on the menu or something.
Wow.
Oh no! Well, then we changed the next week, and it was like shrimp and grits and snapper. We put so much seasoning on there because I had no idea what I was doing.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I had
That's
no idea to
listenable.
design a menu on the Gulf Coast for the summertime.
Right.
But then it was like everything I ordered came. It was beautiful. I was like, the crab meat was great, and all the fish was awesome, and it just, it was like, okay, well, this is successful. So let's start really, and there comes the addictive kitchen mentality again, where I'm buying cookbooks and reading up on things and pushing the max and just trying to, I mean, it's a learning process. It's always going to be.
Right.
So, we
Yeah.
just kept doing it and kept doing it. I mean, we had the luxury of being, oh, we're just opening when the oyster boom hit in Alabama, farm raised oysters. I think I bought all Lane's oysters before it was even Murray Point when they did a test run.
Yeah.
And, I was on the forefront of that whole push. And, it's just, again, I mean,
Right place, right
we
time.
just, yeah, but, we put a lot of work into it. You don't get things unless you earn them. I don't believe in this world. So,
100%.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
I don't know what I'd do if somebody gave me something and was just like, here you go. Weird. So I don't have to do anything for this? No, I don't believe that. But you know what I mean?
Oh yeah,
And so
totally.
and that was everything. It was seafood, seafood, seafood. And look, we still got to cook other things, and
Yeah.
we did lamb and steak, but that was all special. So it was based on seafood, and I really started to hone my skills with seafood. Like I can still butcher whole pigs and whole animals and stuff, but like fish is like my thing now.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
So then, and that's when you started the Southern Grace dinners, was at Fisher's.
Yeah. So Donald was just finishing his first cookbook,
Is
Real
that Real
Cajun,
Cajun?
and he was traveling down to Florida to do a dinner, and we talked about maybe him stopping and doing a dinner and doing a cookbook signing at Fisher's, and that's how it started. We had to figure out a name, and I used Donald's name to beg a bunch of people that didn't know me to come to my restaurant and cook, and we had a stellar lineup the first year.
Yeah.
I think we got Frank to say yes the first year.
Yeah.
And then it was like Alon, Shia, and like all these guys that I didn't really know. I mean, they knew. I mean, I'm sure they called Donald, and Donald was like, this guy's doing these things. He worked for me for a long time, but and it grew, and it got easier to invite people, and we started bringing. Our goal was to bring in some past James Beard winners and some up and coming superstars and some people that we thought were going to do good things, and we really spent a lot of time researching the people and watching videos and stuff on them, because I was telling Jennifer the same thing. It's like, if you're in my world, which is, I say it's my family now, like, you're going to be a relatively positive person. You're going to have a good attitude, and you're generally going to be a good person, right?
Yeah.
If you're anything else than that, you're not going to be in my world for very long.
Mhm.
Certainly not going to get invited to anything.
Yeah. Full
I don't
stop.
live my life like that, and nobody here does either. And our restaurant group, and all we're all in that same level where, you know, if you're not a good person, you're not good like me laughing, you're not good people, it's
Yeah.
a waste of time,
Yeah. Yeah. I
you
think you
know?
get to that point where, and then
You
smarter
know.
people than us have learned how to weed those assholes out soon.
Yeah. And so it's like, I invite a core group of friends that are chefs and mentors that are chefs and, people that I look up to that are chefs and, you know, and then we try to find some people that are coming up, like Nina came and did Southern Grace, Nina Condon before she won anything, before she was big.
La Paire Le Pen?
Um, Anna Castro's come up a bunch of times before she was big.
Yeah.
And that means a lot too, and then we started doing like all girl New Orleans collaborations and mixing up and bringing multiple chefs because a single chef dinner is tough. I
Oh,
mean, that's
sure.
3 past hors d'oeuvres and 5 courses and dessert for 120 to 150 people. And so now I do courses if it's a single chef, or we bring in 3 or 4 chefs because then they can only do one course. It makes it much easier that's a lot.
Yeah.
It's
It's
just
a
a lot to do.
Well, and it's a
Um,
lot to ask them to take off from their restaurant.
yeah, but like you'll go like I ask commanders, and they're like, "Oh, we'll do all the food. We'll send you a recipe for the dessert. You do the pass orders, whatever you want." Or Steve and them, or like you do the dessert. We don't want to do that, and you do an hors d'oeuvre. We'll do the rest. It just depends.
Yeah.
Like I'm willing to help if somebody wants to do it all. Sure, you can.
Yeah. Yeah. You're happy
But
to have them there.
my job is to just assist and make it right. But it got to a point where we had my kids were my team was coming in faster and being on time more and being more motivated and being more focused on learning food as these dinners happened because they were seeing more things and I was being able to show them some more things than I could show them on a regular day of service, right? And so that was just as important to me as the rest of it, you
You
know.
do. I think it's interesting that you call them your kids.
Well, I mean, I don't have kids. I have dogs. And then they say,
Well,
well, why don't you have kids? And I'm like, well, I've got 30 of them here.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah. And
I've
they're all once a
I've
year.
tried in my growth as I've gotten older to not, my crew at Fisher's, I felt like I was 100% responsible for everything.
Mhm.
And I think that kind of tunnel vision me a little bit towards the end of the Fisher's thing. I can give people input, but I can't protect everybody myself. I can't live my life with that pressure.
That's too heavy to
And
carry.
so it was real heavy.
That's real heavy.
And so, you know, that chapter closing and the Little Bird chapter opening was a good thing for me and my health and my mental stability and the way I wanted to be. I mean, I
Yeah.
got to shrug off all that weight.
Yeah.
I also had a family that I loved more than anything in the world that had that that had the restaurants and that had the marina and that, the parents of Bennett and the Long family and I still cherish them, but I felt like I was responsible for all of them too.
Yeah.
And they told me that, we've had these conversations with them and they know that it was a lot for
Mhm.
me. And that's just the way I was. And I know that that's the way I can be. And so, you know, the transition to doing this and has been very good. And then and it's maybe that's just me evolving and becoming a better manager or a better boss.
Leader. Yeah. Leader.
I don't like the word boss, leader, but like I mean it's a respect thing.
Yeah.
You come to work, you clock in, you're on time. We eat good food. We get ready to get it done. Some days are better than others. It's a restaurant. It just is what it is. But talking about how to fix it and giving, my guys the power to help me create specials and to have them be a part of Southern Grace and being a part of, you know, the growth of Little Bird is huge for me. And that's what I can give them. I can't give them protection. And I
Right.
know that now.
Yeah. That sounds like it was a hard earned lesson.
Yeah, I mean, we came out of COVID and it was a different world down here on the beach. And I think I spent a lot more time like kicking people out than I did enjoying being the chef,
Yeah.
and my if somebody was mistreating a staff member, I was kicking them out myself, and
Hmm.
they still need to be kicked out if you do something like that to somebody.
Yeah.
But there's a better way to do it. Um, but it was every day for a long time, and it was like, I started driving to work and being like, oh, what's going to happen today?
Ugh, that's a terrible
And
feeling.
then,
Yeah.
and I don't want to do that. And
Yeah.
I don't think my food was getting better at that point.
Right. So the opportunity for Little Bird happened and you opened in 2025.
Yeah, I mean, it was just, Robert went to Southern Graces. He, came to the restaurant with his group when they were building the oat farm. And, I knew him very well. And, we would have coffee, and we had coffee. And a lot of times when Fishers was still going on, and we had coffee after. And, I spent a lot of time, you know, s- working on my pitch to try to get in the building. And, I thought I was going to try to stay on the beach, which I'm glad I didn't.
Yeah.
Um, And it's just every turn was another huge hill that I managed to get through. And you know, I got to a point where I was like, yeah, I'm gonna need more help than I have. And but
Takes a lot
I
to
wasn't
say
thinking
that.
Robert was the answer. I just was frustrated. I didn't know where to go.
Yeah.
We were having coffee one day, and we were just talking about the world and things, and he was talking about his trials and tribulations of his restaurant. And I was, frustrated, and I was like, I built this whole kind of pitch thing, and it just hasn't seemed to work yet. I'm starting to think that maybe it was something, maybe it's something different. And so I let him look at it, and that's where it started. It was
So
like,
you
hey,
already
come
had
over.
you had the outline for what you envisioned.
Well, I think the idea in the beginning was that we called Virginia Eileen,
Yeah,
and
after your
like it
mom.
was like this kind of nostalgic play on, you know, good good food, Southern food, the stories behind food, the experience at the table, because that was very important in our family, because
Yeah.
that was the only time we were always together.
Yeah.
And so it was pretty raw, wasn't fine tuned. I think I made the name on some app that was free, so it was pretty raw. But I think that Robert saw something in it, and Robert does know that how I do things. And a couple weeks in, we walked through his house before it was anything, and it was just, you know, it was like if things were lining up right, and
Yeah.
it started to work, and the ball started to roll. It started to roll really fast, and
Yeah.
you know,
What
so
was
we
the
opened,
story
and
you were telling me about when y'all were breaking ground on the bar part?
yeah, well, when I was walking around the back and we were explaining. And there had been a rainstorm, and I just, kicked something. And I looked down, and it was like this vintage bottle of gin bottle, which my mom was a gin martini lady. The bottle's behind the bar in the shadow box. Like those things were like there was some energy behind it that was uncontrollable. You know what I mean? Like it felt like she was here trying to help push it along.
Yeah. How long has she been gone?
She's been gone almost 5 years.
Wow.
So,
Wow. Mm-hmm. But you feel her every day.
oh, every day, every day. I sit on the stoop and have a cup of coffee with her when I have time. I make sure that her picture is never dusty. Everybody in the restaurant knows it.
Yeah, you
Don't
go
walk
right, you
by and
place
it's
it
not.
right down the stairs. Yeah.
I walk around. I mean, when I come in every day, it's like my home. I walk around. I touch things. I put my hand on the bar, make sure it's not sticky. I check all the bathrooms. I go all the doors and walk around outside, look at the guard, take pictures, send videos to the people that need to see things, and the day starts. So
Yeah, that's amazing. And so the first Southern Grace dinner you had this year or that you've held at Little Bird was with your Birmingham boys.
yeah, I think it all kind of got rolling at Oyster South. So I saw Frank and Pardis, and I was like, hey, we're Little Bird is happening, and y'all need to come down, and maybe y'all should come and do a Southern Grace. And Pardis was like, yeah, I think that would be great. Frank had to run off and get started. We were all, doing some type of oyster at the event. And I was like, okay. I mean, I think Partis helped push it a little bit to get it going. I mean, Rob and Adam, you just got to chase them down and beat on them a little bit to give you dates.
Yeah.
They're pretty focused on their restaurants and their success of the restaurants. And so it's some constant text messaging and some pushing. But, you know, if you can get one on a date and then you can get two on a date, the other one will kind of jump on. I mean, we're a little bit flip floppy on Adam because he was having another baby, but he was
Right.
like, okay, that date will work.
Yeah.
And
And you're like,
it didn't
lock it,
change. So,
lock it.
but it
Yeah.
was great. It was great. We love Frank. We all say it. It's like if you look up in an encyclopedia on Alabama food, there should be a picture of him. I mean,
Yeah. He's the godfather.
he's the godfather for sure. Such a nice, there's such great people.
I mean,
When I say good people,
yeah.
like, you know, they'll be stern people and they'll tell you if you ask their opinion about something and, they're going to tell you, but that's
Yeah.
love.
Yeah.
That's tough love. That's like my mom was. It's
Yeah.
like, she's not going to sugarcoat it because you're her son and or that she loves you. She's
Yeah.
going to tell you how it is.
Yeah. But that is how they all show up. And like they wouldn't have gotten to be where they are if they were like pushovers or didn't.
No, of course not. Of course not. But it was amazing.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
sold a lot of seats. I don't think we had any chairs left
No,
before we sold the whole bar. I mean, it was crazy.
it was packed out. It was an incredible night.
Yeah, we love it.
Yeah.
And all the other ones were great too, and in their own different ways. And that's what's cool about them is like you could go to all three or six, or maybe we do, and every one of them's gonna have a different vibe.
Yeah. If I lived closer, I'd be at every single one. They're incredible.
Yeah. Somebody was like, maybe you should take it on the road. I was like, oh,
It's not the same vibe.
I just, yeah, it's not. It's
Mm-hmm.
not. But they're
Yeah.
like, well, how do you pick people? And I'm like, I don't know.
It's kind of
Grab a couple of my
organic.
friends.
Yeah.
We try to piece it together. I mean, we're already looking at lists now because we try to invite in the summer.
Yeah.
You know, fall is tough to do because restaurants are busy in the fall. So the only other time it's cool enough to do it is in the fall. I think I did one Southern Grace in December. It was Justin DeVilliers, and he had a cookbook. So we just did stuff out of his cookbook, and then he came up and I mean, it was a lot of cookbooks signed, and people bought a ton of books for Christmas. So that was cool, but it didn't have the same feeling.
Mm-hmm. It
So it's
feels
kind of a summertime thing.
yeah. When I was there, it felt like you were just so excited to like, it was like having your friends over after school and like
Yeah.
just hanging out together and like, let's see what we get up to. But it was like having people over at your house and you had
Yeah. I mean, but that's the way it's gotta be. And no stress needed.
yeah.
Like even if you gotta keep that mentality so the chefs don't get stressed. They don't need to, they don't need to worry about any of it.
Right. Right.
Plates are counted. I got 20 kids that are itching to help you.
Yeah.
Like itching to plate everything for you.
Yeah.
Frank, I got 3 guys with towels that are going to clean everything up. So it's perfect. Like
Yeah.
just over, above and beyond. And then,
Yeah.
and you can ask anybody that's done these dinners with me. We've always tried to do that. And that was always the goal when we tried to do here. And we weren't even going to do them this year. I
Really?
told Robert, I said, Robert, we got to get a Little Bird dialed in and we got to get the staff and the guys in the back to all work in a cohesive thing before we even start. And so, I'm lucky to have a great staff and great people working behind me because, after a couple months, I was like, maybe we should do a few of them.
Yeah.
And that's the testament to everybody here.
Mm-hmm.
And so we did, 3, and I think that they were super successful. I
Yeah.
mean, night and day from 1 to 2 to 3 in our organization and speed and our comfortability with it. I got better getting the food out and got out faster. The wine was poured in better timely manner, and if we'd have done 6, we'd been dialed in by the 6th one.
Oh
But
yeah.
nobody ever feels any of that. It's just I have to look at it and be like, okay, how long did it take? Like, what does it look like? Like, I mean, if you do 60 dinners, you think people would be like, I don't want to go to those anymore. Like But if you
What makes
create one
it
that
very
has a good
special?
vibe and a good feeling, and it's different every time with a chef, but yet it's very professional and it's a fun experience, then I guess you can continue to do them. I mean,
Yeah.
I hope that we can do 6 next year.
Yeah.
That'd be the goal.
Yeah. That would be awesome. Yeah. Was there a moment during one of those dinners where you stopped and realized this was bigger than a meal?
Yeah. That's the way I look at this place when I open up the back door every day. It is bigger than a meal. It always has to be bigger than a meal, and if you look at that list, I mean, I can't always say that food's number one on my experience list. It's
Yeah.
very important, but look, you can order something on the menu that might not be, what you wanted it to be, right? There's nothing wrong with it. It's not seasoned wrong. It's not cooked imperfectionately, but you're going to come back to that restaurant and give it another chance and order something different because the other things are great, like the drinks, the wine, the ambiance, the staff. All of those things matter just as much as food did. I didn't think that way in the beginning.
Really?
No, no, it was me and my food, and it had to be perfect, and I had to steamroll somebody to do it. Sure,
Yeah.
but
So,
that's what makes this place different, and that's what makes great restaurants great is all of it.
yeah. So it's not to, I mean, one of the other questions I was going to ask, what has food taught you about paying attention? But what I hear you saying is that it's all the other stuff too.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, people say that food here is fancy. I think it's just elevated and it's simple, and we lay praise to the proteins, and there's yes, there's feelings behind it because a lot of these things have are based off of stories and feelings and things that I've had in my food career.
Yeah. I
You
think
know,
it's thoughtful.
like you were like when I start to create a menu for a concept, which I've done a lot of. Like I had no problem writing the Fisher's menu. I had no problem writing this menu. It was like like this. I mean, I changed it about 25 times as I looked through and remembered and thought about things. And you know,
Yeah.
I think we had a little bird menu 1 through probably 8 or 10. And probably 8, 10 was the one that was the first print. But I mean, I like the nostalgic of having food that doesn't necessarily always change. And the changing stuff is the stuff that's on the insert and the specials on top of it. Because I mean, you know as well as I do, like Silver Queen corn, that stuff's 3 weeks.
Yeah. It's
It's
fleeting.
gone. By
Fleeting.
the time you print a menu, it's gone.
Yeah.
Tomatoes are fast. And so I want you to be able to come to my restaurant and find something on the menu or know that there's something on the menu that you can have, but also know that there's going to be all these other options that you don't know about when you get here to try to coerce yourself into doing something else.
Yeah.
Because I'm a creature of habit. I eat the same things.
Do you?
Once I find something that's good, I'll wear it out.
What's your go-to right now?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. Raven egg piece off the street.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
great.
You said that was your staff meal the night of the Southern.
Yeah, it's weird. I cook a lot at home. I don't go out to eat a ton. I save all that for when I travel,
Yeah.
but like sometimes my wife puts a bunch of stuff in a bag and says cook with this. Sometimes we plan it. Sometimes we cook Italian. Sometimes we're outside barbecue. I
Yeah.
like cooking at home still.
Sure. You
People are
hope,
like, how do you
you
cook
hope
at
that never
home?
goes away, I'm sure.
No, it's fun to cook at home. We can just lounge around and take our time and drink wine and
Yeah.
listen to music and chill. I mean, it's great.
Yeah. So is there like a late night snack that you're like, this is what I'm going to raid in the
I
fridge?
try not to eat late.
Really?
It's not good for my figure. You
Exactly.
know, I
So,
mean,
yeah. So what time do you roll into the restaurant every day?
uh, so, I'm not really on a schedule per se. I open
Mhm.
on Mondays and I open on Saturdays to give a little relief. But if you were to put me on a schedule at 3 o'clock, I'd probably still be here by 7:30 or 8,
Yeah.
just because and I'll just pace around the house and think about what's going on there.
Yeah.
And I try to stay until everything's good. Yesterday was a fun long day with graduation, but it just depends.
Yeah.
My wife she's a trainer, so she gets up at like 4 in the morning.
She's a
So she's
trainer?
got her classes at 5 or her training at 5. So,
Wow.
and by that point, the dogs are getting up by 6 anyway. So,
Yeah. You might as
you
well
know,
roll out.
but 10 o'clock maybe at the
Yeah.
latest, try to be home by 10.
Yeah. That's not bad.
No, no. Yesterday I was in a dispatch till about 11:30 at night, and I came in extra early to do inventory. It was a long day.
That is a very long day.
Well, we
That's the
had
stuff that
it's
people
just
don't know about.
graduation out of nowhere on a Monday, which is odd. I didn't even know it was coming. We did like almost 350 people.
Woof.
Yeah, with a Monday staff, not
Yeah, I
a
was gonna
Saturday night
say.
staff.
Yeah, Monday
So
restaurants are different.
it was fun.
Yeah, you had a good time?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, look, it's batting down the hatches, guys. It's gonna be busy.
Yeah.
Hold on,
Yeah.
right?
But we're all in it together.
Make sure the food is the way it's supposed to be. Take your time in plating it. Don't rush it because I'm just gonna give it back to you. Like we're gonna replate it.
Yeah.
So I'd rather you take 5 more minutes to give it to me than
Mhm.
and it is what it is.
That's a
So
strong lesson to teach people.
not a lot of mistakes. Yeah, they're line cooks and like my team. The guys want structure, right?
Yeah.
They do want structure, and
Yeah.
they want somebody. They want the expert has to be a good leader. You have to be able to communicate. You have to be able to feel when somebody's overwhelmed, and then you give them an all day whether they want it or not. You
Mhm.
work them through it. You
Yeah.
you know. So it's just you adapt, you evolve, you fix the problem, and you give your guys the tools they need for success every day, and you don't ask them to do anything you're not going to do, and you just you know chefs need to be in the kitchens with their teams, and if you look at it, look at the restaurants that are great.
Yeah. They're
Like
there.
the chefs are there. They're not like not there. Some of them
Mhm.
work a little more than others, but they're there on a constant. They're
Yeah.
checking food. They're talking to their other leaders in the group. They're always there for their staff members. They're constantly checking in and telling everybody thank you. I mean, it'd be amazing just telling people thank you at the end of the shift.
Goes a
Thank
long
y'all for
way.
thank y'all. Like I left last night, I was like, I know it was busy. Thank you guys for getting through with me. I appreciate it. Like
That's such a
I can't do
small
this
thing,
without
but a
them,
big
and they
thing.
they
Yeah.
need to know that. What am
Yeah.
I gonna stand there? I can't cook 5 stations by myself.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it's
Yeah.
just the way it's got to be.
Yeah. This does feel like a new chapter for you. I mean, I haven't gotten to know you before this season, but it feels like you're just a naturally happy person, but you feel like seems like you're in the right place, right time.
Yeah, well, I believe I am.
Yeah. Do you feel like restaurants have an ability to heal?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
You know, I if for it, I had a couple days where my thought process was like, okay, well, maybe there's something else for me to do,
Mhm.
and and those are some hard days.
Yeah.
And I was like, no. And that extreme was probably the only reason why I ever even went this direction.
Yeah.
You know, for as much as I want to celebrate my mom, I'm very protective of her still, you know. And then the thought process of the pressure of me being successful in it because it's her being of the way I used to be was another hurdle I had to deal with before,
Yeah.
right? I'm a human.
Yeah.
I'm,
Yeah.
like you got to understand that you're gonna have mistakes happen, and that's part of being human. And you know, I just try to plan and try to stay ahead of the curve so that I see those before. And I'm one of those, worst case scenarios. If I set it up where this is why we have these people, just in case,
Mhm.
you can kind of hurdle those a little bit. But that was the number one thing when I started to work on this was like, I've got to make a change for this to work.
Yeah.
Because if not, it could break me.
Do
You
you
know what I
feel
mean?
like,
Like
yeah. Do you feel
the
like,
pressure I carried at the last one, I could not carry that pressure with my mom on top of it. I wouldn't have been happy. It had to have been, I had to do it differently. And
do you,
so it's a celebration.
yeah,
It's not a pressure.
yeah. Do you feel like Little Bird kind of saved your life in a way?
Yeah, I 100%. Like, I don't like if I thought about it right now, if it was like, hey, we've got a great opportunity to head down on the beach.
Mm-mm.
No. And right now, I don't want to even like, hey, could I do another concept down the street with Robert down the road? Maybe.
Yeah,
Right now, I'm happy doing this, and we're not even a year yet. We're not thinking about none of that stuff.
yeah, yeah.
You know,
Enjoy what you,
we get to start looking at numbers and being like, okay, well, this day last year,
yeah,
it's
um,
that's important. But I kind of like not knowing.
yeah,
Like, hey, maybe we padded it a little bit too much here and there, kept a couple extra people around, but you never know. And we got a lot of regulars here already, and people come, and Fairhope loves Little Bird,
yeah.
and that's important to me.
That's all you can ask for.
Yeah,
Yep. Well, I know I've taken up a lot of your time. I could talk to you all day. I wish we could just hang out. Thank you, Chef.
yeah, it was a pleasure. If you need
I
anything from me,
appreciate it.
holler.
All right. Thank you.